The campus beauty invited everyone to dinner, but asked me to pay when it was time to settle the bill. She thought she could embarrass me, a poor boy, in front of my classmates. But without saying a word, I transferred 100,000 yuan directly. This left the school beauty looking surprised. Could this guy be a hidden second-generation rich? Then the school beauty immediately dragged me into a designer handbag store. I just want to see your sincerity. But there was a hint of a sneer in my eyes. You used to ignore my love, but now I'm out of your reach. So I turned out to be the famous simp in school. My girlfriend, whom I have been trying to please for 2.5 years, suddenly broke up with me. I immediately ran to the girls' dormitory to find her. Although in the eyes of others, I am just a max-level simp. But I am completely indifferent to this. I even took on 4 jobs outside. I only hope to bring gifts to ask for forgiveness from my girlfriend. But her voice keeps stimulating my eardrums. Her ex-boyfriend came to me for reconciliation. I feel he needs me more. I roar with unwillingness. You actually choose a scumbag over me. But with a harsh honk. His girlfriend got into the driver's seat of the luxury car without even looking back. The yellow-haired man in the car scoffed at me. Mercedes and low self-esteem cannot coexist. You should just work hard, simp. I am helpless in this situation. I can only watch them leave with their taillights fading away. As ice-cold water fills my throat, my mind remains puzzled. Why should sincerity be betrayed? Is it wrong to be a simp? At the thought of this, I crush the mineral water bottle in my hand. As long as I please enough people, I am no longer a simp but a player. At that moment, a voice suddenly sounded in my mind. Congratulations, host, on binding the ultimate simp system. I looked at the suddenly appearing golden panel in confusion. Beside me, there came an angry scolding in a sweet voice. I don't know when it appeared in front of me. A bold white-haired young girl. Are you crazy or something? Staring at me all the time. I just wanted to explain, but her personal information was clearly visible in my eyes. I didn't expect that just one glance would decrease my affinity by 50. At this point, the system prompts that as long as you use the simp system to increase the affinity with the girl to over 95, she will become the host's simp. A black card appears in my hand. Although these 9 trillion only can be used on women, but 1/10 of the consumption can also be directly transferred to my account. Upon seeing this, I suddenly showed a cold smile. Very good. Just in time to try out this woman in front of me. But after I asked her out for a meal. Coco, on the other hand, had a look of disdain on her face. As the school beauty, she has never been short of suitors. The number of boys who like her adds up to the size of 2.5 football fields. Let's have this guy make a fool of himself today. Upon thinking of this, Coco didn't hesitate to raise his phone. I want to treat all the classmates present to snacks. Why don't you help me settle the bill? But just as she was about to watch me embarrass myself, her phone beeped. She received 100,000 yuan in her wallet. The scene instantly fell into a brief silence. Coco widened her eyes in surprise. The guy in front of him, who looked like a simp, didn't seem like someone who could come up with 100,000. Coco immediately pushed my phone away. Adding my contact information is fine, but you have to go somewhere with me first. With that, she grabbed my hand and started walking outside. But only after reaching the destination did I realize. This is clearly an attempt to make a fool out of me. However, her actions are just what I wanted. Anyway, I was originally here to test this simp system. But I had just walked into the specialty store. A familiar figure caught my attention. That is my ex-girlfriend Sandra. She is now holding a bag and showing off aggressively in front of the yellow-haired man. The moment when our eyes met, an indescribable emotion flickered in her eyes. I lowered my lonely eyes. I liked her for 2.5 years. But she just saw me as a long-term meal ticket. Just then, Coco intentionally snuggled into my arms. She pretended to pout and glanced at Sandra. Is she your ex-girlfriend? It seems like I came at the wrong time. I smiled back. You came just in time. Go pick out your gift. Upon hearing this, Coco turned around to ask the shop assistant, do you still have the limited edition spring bag in stock? There is one left. However, this lady is currently trying it out. Sandra raised an eyebrow at the mention. Who is this woman again? But she can only deliberately please her brother, the yellow-haired man. His birthday is coming soon. While the yellow-haired man just froze. Didn't you just celebrate your birthday? That was the lunar birthday. They also have a solar birthday. The yellow-haired man frowned. You know I don't like girls who are too materialistic. You didn't get together with me because of money, right? Sandra's face turned pale at the words. Of course, I did it for the money. At this moment, Coco snatched the bag. Sorry. If you're not buying it, then I'll take it. I also won't beat around the bush. I'll just take out my black card to pay. This made Coco's affinity towards me increase by 60 directly. Seeing this, I am overjoyed. At this rate, it won't take many days to conquer the school beauty. The only problem is that the cash back amount is really too little. The shop assistant's discussion popped into Sandra's mind. Why do some people look like rich second generations, but are still so stingy? It really can't judge a book by its cover. Sandra quietly lowered her head. No one knew what she was really thinking. Coco, on the other hand, was mocking from the side. The judgmental level of some people is really trashy. After saying that, she grabbed my arm. Thank you, honey. You are so good. At this moment, the usually arrogant Sandra's tears started to swirl in her eyes. Then she pushed me away and ran outside. Charles, you are too much. But deep down, I just chuckled. We have a long way to go. Just then, the system's voice rang in my ear. Judge Sandra, as the second target. Seeing this, I smiled. It's getting more and more interesting now. At this moment, Coco came up and said, I did pretty well just now, didn't I? Where shall we go play next? I just smiled. Aren't you satisfied with just one bag? Of course, we will continue shopping. I quickly went shopping with Coco in various luxury stores. And Coco, carrying bags big and small, is now filled with admiration. A man who can use a credit card is handsome. But this is not over yet. Along with me crazily swiping the card. But in her eyes, there was a hint of worry. Because if she continued buying, her rented house would no longer have enough space. But my next words almost made her jaw drop. How about I buy you a new house? I didn't expect this to decrease Coco's affinity towards me by 5 points. After all, it was quite extravagant for a first meeting. There might be some ulterior motive behind it. Seeing this situation, I also understand it now. I must have scared her. After pondering for a moment, I walked up and said, I am a junior at the Art Academy, 165 centimeters tall, weighing 98 kilograms, a Capricorn. I like watching horror movies, but I'm afraid of walking alone at night. Actually, I have liked you for a long time. Upon hearing this, she was stunned on the spot. But these are just the information I read from her profile panel. Then I turned around and told the salesperson to recharge a 500,000 credit membership card. Just give it to her directly if there are any new models in the future. If you really feel awkward, offering yourself is also acceptable. Upon hearing that, Coco pushed me away. But affinity increased by 30 directly. My action suddenly attracted a bunch of shop assistants' admiration. Although this boy is not handsome, he can consider things so attentively for girls. Truly love him, love him. At this moment, Coco asked, Aren't you buying anything for yourself? I shrugged. I have no money. After all, I can't spend a single cent of this SIMP gold on myself. But the next second, Coco took my hand. Now it's my turn to give you a gift. With a few swift movements, some never-before-worn designer brands appeared on me. The refreshed me quickly boosted her affinity once again. I didn't expect this guy would look so handsome after dressing up. I felt a bit embarrassed seeing her surprised expression. Is it strange to dress like this? But Coco used her fingertips to prop up my chin. Not strange at all. I just feel like we match well now. But not 2 seconds later, she let go of my hand. I am very happy today. Several times I thought I was in love. See you next time. This woman is quite interesting. She knows the strategy of laying a long line to catch a big fish. I returned to the dormitory soon after. But my roommates were extremely surprised by my outfit. After learning that I had a date with the school beauty, Coco, the dormitory head earnestly advised, Sandra, if you can't even handle things with Sandra, why are you thinking of pursuing the school beauty? Listen to my advice. You can't control this girl. But the next second, I received a message from Sandra. If you really hate me, let's unfriend each other. When I saw the message, I just smiled. How could this be possible? I'm still waiting for you to help me promote affinity and make money. Her next words made me hesitate. She explained that she was with the yellow-haired man because her mother is seriously ill and needs money for medical expenses. Upon hearing this, I didn't say a word and transferred the money directly. At the same time, in the girls' dormitory, Sandra looked at her phone in surprise. I was just talking casually. This guy is really rich. The curious roommate on the side asked, Is it that rich kid? But there was a hint of loss in Sandra's eyes. He's my ex-boyfriend. Did I really misjudge him? So Sandra sent me a few more messages in a row. She even asked me about my relationship with Coco. But what she doesn't know is, in my eyes now, she's just a complete green tea girl. So I simply stopped paying attention to her messages. But this way, the speed of earning coins will slow down. I looked at my phone in contemplation. Is there anything legal? I don't know if tipping female live streamers counts. I immediately opened the live streaming app. The female live streamer is posing in front of the camera. I casually chose a name, Lonely Smokey, and then asked in the barrage if I could be her top fan. But what I received were all kinds of mockery from various nobles. The #1 fan has over 1 million followers. You are just a level 3 secondary account. Better find someone in your class. I just smile. Spending this money is much faster than buying a bag. As I press the send gift button, Mia makes a heart shape with both hands. Thanks Lonely Smokey for sending the super rocket. But the next second, she was frozen in place. Because this was just the beginning of the explosion. In less than a moment, I fired off 100 rockets. Even if she is a popular streamer with millions of fans, it's rare for her to encounter this kind of situation. This is a whole 1 million. Unless it's during a guild competition, only the leader of the guild would cast a large number of votes for themselves. However, the money spent by the guild must be fully refunded. Since I want to show off, I have to do it in a big way. All the broadcasters on the platform will soon have rockets flying across the public screens in their live rooms. At the same time, a scream was heard from a building. The boss is in big trouble. Just now, an unknown tycoon swiped 10 million at Mia's place. Upon hearing this, the boss spurted out a mouthful of water. Are you sure that isn't one of our cronies? And at this moment, inside the broadcaster's lounge, several female hosts have flushed faces. That extravagant tycoon casually spends a bit, which is worth a few years of our salary. After a while, my private messages were flooded. Numerous female hosts asked to meet me offline. Only Mia is still immersed in joy. She even suspects she might be dreaming. Until the operation sign appeared. The boss instructed her to make sure to secure Lonely Smokey. Seeing this, Mia smirked provocatively. How could she possibly give in to such a big shot? Immediately, she blew a kiss towards the screen. Thank you, brother Lonely Smokey. I will be off the air in 5 minutes. Reply to my private message. But at this moment, I have already fallen fast asleep. Until the next morning. A scream from the dormitory building woke me up. Yesterday, A tycoon spent 10 million. It went viral directly. But what I'm puzzled about is why I didn't establish a relationship with Mia after spending so much on her. With confusion, I opened the live streaming app. But the sudden private message almost surprised me. My account, Lonely Smokey. For some reason, I suddenly have tens of thousands more followers. Even more surprising is that these three usually messy guys suddenly started tidying up. Are you three going on blind dates or something? Today is a public class. I can appreciate the goddess Cynthia up close. At the mention of it, a beautiful figure immediately appeared in my mind. Cynthia is an excellent but somewhat excessive woman. Her family background is an existence that ordinary people dare not imagine. In the hearts of many boys, she shines even brighter than celebrities. The layers of halo on her are enough to make anyone feel inferior. But this is exactly what I want. Because being difficult to chase means being able to earn a lot of money back. And I have two girls whispering behind me. Charles looks so sharp today. Could it be that he dressed up on purpose for you? Sandra's face turned slightly red at the words. It's possible. I looked at it with a look of disgust. It's just a beautiful skin that looks the same everywhere. But what I care most about now is how to bind Cynthia. But just then, a voice suddenly caught my attention. I saw a classmate with two lackeys walking up to Cynthia. Beauty, add me as a friend. But the next second, a hand grabbed his collar. Just then, Cynthia's roommate Joan held a pencil and said, "You rascal, are you looking for trouble?" The man, frightened, quickly explained the misunderstanding. I just want to join the student council. I want to ask some advice from the senior students. Just then, I came up behind them. Senior sister, I also want to add you as a friend. Is it over yet? Compared to Joan's scolding, Cynthia's face, on the other hand, blushed slightly. The man in front of her seemed to have no fear at all. At this moment, Joan sneered. Do you also want to join the student council? But I just shook my head. I was not interested in that. Then, what do you want to be friends with Cynthia for? I smiled. Isn't it obvious? I want to pursue her. As soon as these words were spoken, they instantly drew mockery from all classmates. This guy is in big trouble. Who knew Cynthia on the side just smiled slightly. All right then. I'll take you down. How did that aloof goddess suddenly react to such a proactive unknown male student? But what they don't know is that Cynthia has seen all kinds of boys trying to pursue her since she was young. Perhaps it is the shining halo around her. The vast majority of boys have little self-confidence in front of her. But this classmate, however, directly expressed his feelings. You are really special, Cynthia muttered as she looked at her phone. While Sandra's face was rather unpleasant beside her. I have to make a move. Just after class, I was surrounded by my roommates. Charles, you were amazing today. You actually got close to Cynthia. Can you introduce her friends to us later? I pursed my lips. It's still early days. Don't get too excited. At that moment, a sarcastic remark came from behind me. You have self-awareness. It was just the buddy I was looking for earlier. I was just about to insult him a few words. But the next second, a figure appeared. Charles, you're so slow. I've been waiting for you for half a day. Everyone was stunned as they watched the beautiful girl walking towards them. It looks like I don't need to counterattack at all. This is Coco's shy complaint. Do you think the clothes I wear are nice? They were all bought by you. But I just took her hand and held it. How could it be that you look good? Looking at our intimate appearance, the man just now felt like weeping without tears. He couldn't figure out what's wrong with himself. But the next second, a burst of crying interrupted his complaints. Am I asking for trouble? Tears kept falling from Sandra's eyes. Why is this happening? Clearly, I arrived first. Who does she think she is? At this moment, Coco handed me a portrait. This is a portrait I stayed up all night drawing. I can feel her taking the initiative. However, my heart is filled with bitterness. This is the first time in my life that I have received a gift from a girl. But when I look at her smile, I think of the girl I once tried so hard to please. But she never looked me in the eye. Now, Coco, do you want to pull me down again? Coco felt a little at a loss when I didn't speak. Did I make you unhappy? I asked lightly. Why did you give this to me? Without waiting for her answer, I directly snatched the portrait away. I prefer you as a person more than your gift. Feeling the warmth emanating from your wrist, Coco's affinity is also rapidly surging. Little did they know, a hint of a cold smile appeared on my lips. Still want to control me? Now you are nothing but a tool for me to earn coins. But just when my thoughts were wandering, a man with glasses suddenly intervened and stole my love. Coco, didn't you say you were going to get your hair done? Who is this guy? I've been chasing you for so long, you wouldn't even let me touch your hand. Now how come you're all cuddled up with him? Looking at him with tears in his eyes, this familiar presence overwhelms me. But Coco just stood aside, with a gloomy expression. Who are you to me? What's my relationship with you? Coco's words sounded harsh. I even unconsciously frowned. From this younger student, I seemed to see myself from years ago. Thinking of this, I suddenly pushed Coco's arm away. I didn't expect you to be this kind of person. Is it fun to play with boys' feelings? I don't care about your past. But I feel that you don't respect me very much. You also don't respect yourself. And at this moment, that portrait turned into snowflakes drifting in the air. There was no chance to explain to her. I strode away into the distance. But in my heart, I kept sneering. Coco, how will you deal with this strategy of letting the enemy off lightly? And at this moment, Coco was already crying uncontrollably. She thought I would be like other rich second-generation young men, just playing with her. She didn't expect that I really liked her. She initially wanted to play hard to get, trying to make me fall helplessly in love with her. But unexpectedly, I actually confronted her on the spot. In an instant, Coco felt a deep heartache, because tears told her that she had fallen in love with this man. On the other side, Cynthia, a wealthy heiress, opened her live broadcast with a playful attitude. Soon, she was connected to a popular streamer with millions of fans. I was just about to enjoy the show. I didn't expect the streamer I was connected to was Mia, who had just rejected my invitation. At this moment, she looked at the new streamer in front of her with a disdainful expression. Little sister, you should just admit defeat. I have the backing of a tycoon like Lonely Smokey. Sure enough, soon the screen was filled with a rain of rockets. Seeing this situation, Mia had a charming smile on her face. Thank you, brother. But the next second, she turned into stone on the spot. The room covered by the rocket was not her live stream room at all. It belonged to a new streamer across from her. In just 2.5 seconds, I sent 1,000 rockets to Cynthia. At this moment, Cynthia widened her eyes. Although she is a wealthy daughter, when she made this move, $1 million still gave her a big shock. While the anchor Mia ground her back teeth, she was shocked to find out that it was not credited to me. Just as she was lost in her thoughts, the operation team raised a sign asking her to explain the situation to the boss. Seeing this situation, Mia had to greet the audience. Afterwards, she quickly turned off the live stream. And watching this scene, I let out a cold laugh. Giving you gifts is giving you face. A person who sells smiles also wants to manipulate me. Later, I looked at Cynthia's live broadcast room. Cynthia, I've invested a lot in this. Don't let me down. Soon this matter will be trending. Mysterious Tycoon rewards new anchor, pushing them to the top of the rankings. Joan, the roommate beside, exclaimed excitedly. Cynthia, you're going to become an internet sensation. Cynthia pouted and said, I don't want to be an internet sensation who seeks attention from men online. We women still need to be economically and personally independent. Upon hearing that, Joan chuckled and said, Yes, you're right. But then she had a look of gossip on her face. Speaking of which, could it be that some tycoon is pursuing you? Cynthia turned her head away. I am not that shallow of a person. But she has given so many gifts. I still have to send a private message to thank her. But the next second, Cynthia screamed. I seem to really know this big spender. Looking at this particularly eye-catching dog profile picture. Set reminders and tags. Upon seeing this, Cynthia immediately began to visualize it. Charles is definitely the son of a tycoon. Although he grew up in luxury, he has a low-key nature. He always pretends to live an ordinary life. Having received an elite education, he must be tired of being looked up to by others. He just wants to live freely. Until one day he meets the girl he loves. Therefore, he decides to pursue her in the guise of an ordinary person. Joan, who was listening on the side, had an expression of speechlessness. Can someone who casually spends 10 million be considered an ordinary person? However, Cynthia turned a deaf ear to her words. Growing up in luxury, but having to pretend to be an ordinary person. That must be very hard. I must show my gratitude to him properly. On the other hand, I just finished showering when my phone received a message. What surprised me was that Cynthia actually took the initiative to contact me. She immediately asked me if I was free when she approached me. She said she wanted to treat me to a meal. I was full of doubt about this. She didn't even ask where my money came from. What kind of medicine is Cynthia really selling? The next day after school, I rode my beloved electric scooter to pick up Cynthia. Just a few steps after I started walking, I encountered an uncle waiting for his daughter by the roadside. The uncle saw me looking a bit shabby and laughed, saying, "Young man, don't just look around. You still need to work hard to earn money. Otherwise, all these young and pretty beauties have been taken away by our uncles." Just at this moment, Cynthia appeared at the school gate, looking around in all directions. Just at the moment when our eyes met, Cynthia's face instantly flushed and her heart started racing. At this moment, in her eyes, I appear to be a tycoon. The young master disguises himself as an ordinary person in pursuit of true love. Meanwhile, the uncle on the side is still endlessly bragging. "Young man, if you can afford to pay for my car, you will be able to chase after such a beautiful girl." However, before he could finish boasting, Cynthia suddenly sat in the back seat, and we left in a hurry. Seeing this scene, the uncle collapsed on the ground with a face full of self-doubt. What's the use of making so much money? At this moment, Cynthia in the back seat is already in a state of confusion. But this is the romantic scene she envisioned in her mind. Cynthia was lost in her own thoughts. I have brought her to the lobster restaurant we had agreed upon. We quickly ordered 10 pounds of spicy crayfish. Then I started wiping the table for Cynthia. But just this small gesture seemed particularly gentlemanly in her eyes. Treating others with such restraint shows a proper balance. Being a bit more attentive seems eager, while being a bit less appears cold. Obviously, it indicates strict upbringing. But the next second, I started devouring the lobster with big bites. And this seemed particularly rare to Cynthia. Despite being wealthy, she still wanted to accompany me to eat at street food stalls. It must be to ensure I don't feel any pressure. "Charles, you are truly a gentle Highland flower." When I was enjoying my meal to the fullest, the system suddenly prompted that Cynthia increased my affinity by 10. "My lady, what are you imagining?" "Don't let me think too much." Cynthia handed me a peeled shrimp right away. Later, with her face slightly flushed, she said, "Charles, thank you. Let me help you peel the shrimp." And her action made me lose focus instantly. I used to dream of seeing this scene. Just as I was about to open my mouth to eat shrimp, my ex-girlfriend walked in with her yellow-haired man. Sandra, who saw this scene, immediately widened her eyes. Am I dreaming? Cynthia is actually feeding Charles shrimp. Then she began to wonder in her heart again. When did Charles become so capable? And now it's Cynthia again. To avoid embarrassment, Sandra turned her head and said to the yellow-haired man, "Let's go eat somewhere else. There are too many people here." Yellow-haired man unexpectedly pulled her over. Probably he was afraid of bumping into acquaintances. I just like eating in crowded places. The yellow-haired man then walked straight up behind me. Then he waved a few 100 yuan notes. "Here is 500. Give me your seat." Seeing me indifferent, the yellow-haired man threw out another 1,000. "This should be enough. You dead simp, get lost." However, this action caused Cynthia beside him to reach her limit. Mother asterisk cur. Where did this asshole come from to ruin my perfect date with my mother? Cynthia was about to lose it. A cold voice suddenly sounded right behind us. "Keith eats and lives off me. He even dares to use my money to pick up girls." Just then, a 200-pound rich woman appeared. We said angrily behind her. This statement directly frightened the yellow-haired man. "What are you doing here?" However, the rich woman just yelled at him. "If I hadn't found out, how much longer would you have kept deceiving me?" Upon hearing this, the yellow-haired man hurriedly explained, "Everything I have is from you. How could I betray you?" He finished speaking and immediately grabbed Sandra by her hair, saying, "It's all because of you, you filthy woman. How dare you seduce me?" Sandra cried in grievance. "You were the one who asked me out first. You even claimed to be single." Before she could finish, the yellow-haired man slapped her across the face. At this moment, Sandra, who was lying on the ground, was completely stunned. "Keith, how dare you hit me?" However, the yellow-haired man had no intention of letting her off that easily. He reached out his hand and was about to strike again. But suddenly, a large hand grabbed his wrist. "Is bullying a young girl as a big man not embarrassing enough for you?" Sandra was moved to tears by this scene. Charles truly still loves me. As Sandra's affinity towards me continued to rise, the system suddenly prompted, "Congratulations, host, on a successful comeback. Target number 2, Sandra, has officially become host's loyal simp." And as a result, my body has also been reinforced to a certain extent. Immediately, I effortlessly controlled the yellow-haired man with a wrist lock. The furious yellow-haired man picked up a bottle and swung it at me. And in the next second, with one punch, I sent him and the bottle flying. "Keith, you can mooch off people if you want, but hitting a woman? You deserve to die." By now, Keith had completely lost his mind. He pulled out a small knife and stabbed at me. I grabbed the wrist of the yellow-haired man when I saw the situation. I threw him out with a powerful shoulder throw. I then left without looking back, taking Cynthia with me. But at that moment, Sandra threw her arms around my legs. "Charles, I was wrong. Can you give me another chance? Can we start over?" Upon hearing this sentence, I fell into silence. Which Charles are you referring to? Is it Charles, who carried you to the emergency room at 2:30 in the morning? Or is it Charles, who saved money for half a year to buy you a new phone? Or is it Charles, who knew you admired vanity and always believed you would come back? Unfortunately, these Charles have all been killed by you by your own hands. And what I said deeply stung Sandra. At this moment, she finally understood. She has completely lost someone who used to have eyes only for her. After returning to school, I apologized to Cynthia. "I'm really sorry, Cynthia. This whole thing disturbed our meal." Cynthia had a big smile on her face. "It's okay. I didn't expect you to have such an unknown side to you." Upon hearing this, I just forced a smile. The former god of pure love is completely dead now. And my performance is also making Cynthia more and more interested in me. Sandra returned to the dormitory crying and kept repeating my name in her mouth. Upon seeing this, the roommate comforted and said, "So you know now. I didn't expect that Charles is actually a hidden second-generation rich kid. He even sent over 10 million gifts to Cynthia in the live broadcast room." Upon hearing this, Sandra was shocked as if struck by lightning. Over 10 million. Is it true? It must be true. This news has already spread throughout the entire school. Upon hearing this, Sandra immediately froze in place. Just thinking about all the little ways she used to belittle me in the past. Sandra couldn't help but burst into tears. And on the other side, just as I was about to take a bath, I suddenly realized that I've grown 8-pack abs. I didn't expect that the system would reward me with just a bit of attributes, making my figure so perfect. I wonder which woman will benefit from it in the future. Just then, Coco suddenly called me. Does this woman come up with some new tricks to control me again? I immediately answered the phone and asked, Sister Coco, is there something you need from me? But from the other end of the phone came her crying. Charles, I really don't know what to do. Meanwhile, in a village within the city, Coco was crying with her head in her hands in the messy room. Charles, only you can help me. Can you lend me 500,000? It turns out Coco's family used to be relatively wealthy. But because her father got involved in gambling, he owes a lot of money. So she appears materialistic, but in fact, she is just trying to help her family repay the debts. Of course, I naturally don't believe her nonsense. But I still asked her for the bank account number. Coco didn't expect me to be so easy to talk to. She immediately sent me the card number. In the end, within a few seconds, her bank card received a transfer of 5 million. Coco was incredulous. How could Charles have so much money? I just smiled. I just added an extra 0. On the other end of the phone came Coco's joyous scream. Her affinity towards me also increased. Later, Coco said tearfully, Thank you, Charles. I will definitely repay you. What puzzled me was that Coco stopped moving when my affinity with her reached 94. You haven't won her over yet. Do you want to confess your feelings and give it a try? But then I thought about it, and felt it was not feasible. After all, in this game of SIMP, whoever reveals their needs first is at a disadvantage. Early the next day, I was just about to go to class with my roommates. But I was stopped by a voice behind me. Charles, I brought breakfast for you. Let's go to class together. As soon as Sandra finished speaking, another voice could be heard nearby. Charles, I've also brought breakfast for you. I even specially made seafood congee for you. But just when Sandra and Coco were facing off, once again, a voice behind me called out to me.